Good evening, hello and welcome. You're with the News Today, your primetime destination. News, newsmakers, talking points. This is a News Today special on another big news day where Donald Trump has announced a ceasefire between India and Pakistan. Will the ceasefire hold? What are the objectives that have been achieved from Operation Sindoor? All the big questions, news without the noise. Let's get you the headlines first. Pakistan provokes along the LOC just hours after a ceasefire is announced. Pakistani artillery shelling reported in Akhnoor, Rajouri and Pura. 12 hours after Indian missiles and drones hit 11 Pakistan air bases, Islamabad agrees to a ceasefire with India. India-Pak military-level talks to take place on Monday. Ceasefire conditional Indus Water Treaty to remain suspended. India to continue diplomatic and financial strikes on Pakistan. India draws a new red line for Pakistan. Any act of terror will now be considered an act of war. Donald Trump takes credit, claims US mediated India-Pakistan ceasefire. New Delhi says US only piled IMF bailout pressure on Islamabad. But the big story that we are breaking at this moment, artillery shelling by Pakistan reported along Akhnoor, Rajouri and Pura international border. In Srinagar, 4 or 5 blast sounds have been reported. There is still a blackout in Srinagar. Chief Minister Omar Abdullah has said explosions have been heard across Srinagar. All of this, remember, coming just a couple of hours after a ceasefire was put in place. It was supposed to start from 5 p.m. We are now at 9 p.m. and we are getting these reports of the ceasefire being violated by artillery shelling by Pakistan. How does one trust Pakistan if they continue to violate the ceasefire? That's just one of the questions I'll raise. I'm going to go to Kamaljit Sandhu, who's there in one of the places where that ceasefire violation has taken place. Kamal, what are you picking up? We were told that the ceasefire would take effect from 5 p.m. Now at 9 p.m. we are getting reports that the ceasefire is still being violated in Akhnoor, Rajouri and Pura.
Ceasefire violations taking place in several sectors, Rajdeep. What we're telling to you is a number of explosions being heard even in Srinagar and Baramulla. But these are hostile projectiles which are being taken down. What we know is that the drones have been sighted across Kashmir Valley and even in the Jammu sector, and these continue to be the hostile projectiles or the UAVs, and remember that is why this particular action is being taken place. What we can also confirm to you is there are multiple sporadic shelling taking place in different sectors, and this is where it seems that the Pakistani army is not in line with the ceasefire which has been announced between the two countries. But at this point of time, what we can tell you, situation again looks uncertain because blackout being carried out in several areas in Jammu and Kashmir at this point of time. This is not really good news because there was a sigh of relief coming in, especially the people of border and LOC, that things could eventually settle down. But that's just within announcement of a couple of hours. There is a blackout again. There are firing sounds heard. There are explosions heard. This is artillery shelling being done, especially near the area of line of control all the way up to Jammu. So several sectors are now reporting sporadic shelling which is happening. But clearly, as far as Pakistan is concerned, remember the provocation continues from their particular side, because if they had agreed upon the ceasefire, they would have honored it. But meanwhile, what we see is Pakistan once again trying to wreak havoc. Meanwhile, what we've seen is that Indian side has shown restraint at this point of time. So we do not know at this point of time because we haven't heard that sort of a response coming in. But definitely Pakistan now going back on its word, especially in regards to ceasefire and a major, massive ceasefire violation, and including the drone activity being reported in parts of Jammu and Kashmir.
So saying drone activity still reported, artillery firing reported. Presumably the BSF, as we are being told, is also ensuring adequate retaliation. India has made it very clear any provocation from Pakistan will lead to severe retaliation. Blackout in Srinagar. We are told that there have been violations in Gurdaspur as well, which is in Punjab. Sunil Ji Bhatt joins us at this moment. Sunil, what are you picking up? Are you also seeing explosions around you? Is artillery shelling still going on? Chief Minister Omar Abdullah is saying explosions have been heard in Srinagar itself. But where you are you still picking up explosions, artillery shelling sounds?
Rajdeep, as soon as the ceasefire was announced, people living in border areas had heaved a sigh of relief. But once again, Pakistan has violated ceasefire along the line of control in many subsectors in Rajouri district and even along the India-Pakistan international border in Akhnoor sector in Paragwal area. So it's clear that Pakistan has once again betrayed us, and it's not new. If we go into history, there are so many instances when Pakistan had said that it will maintain peace and tranquility along the borders, but then again Pakistan betrayed us and it violated ceasefire along the line of control as well as along the international border. Rajdeep, what we are learning from our sources is that multiple explosions have been heard in Srinagar city, and this has now been confirmed by even Jammu and Kashmir Chief Minister Omar Abdullah. He has just tweeted and he has said that what has happened to the ceasefire that was announced, multiple many explosions heard in Srinagar city. That's what he was trying to say. And drone activity is also being witnessed in many areas in Jammu and Kashmir. Sirens are also on in Samba and even in Udhampur.
Is it less than
It's clear that
are the activities that you are witnessing less than yesterday? Is there a reduction in intensity, or is it as intense as it was yesterday? A quick answer.
there is reduction in the activity, but the fact is, Rajdeep, that a ceasefire was announced, a formal ceasefire was announced, and even US President Donald Trump tweeted about it. And within hours of this ceasefire being announced, it has gone for a toss because Pakistan has once again violated ceasefire. It has resorted to shelling and firing in the border areas in Jammu and Kashmir, and it makes it clear that Pakistan can never be trusted. In the past also we have seen that the then Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee with high hopes had gone to Lahore in a bus, and what happened after that? We had Kargil. Similarly, Parvez Musharraf had made promises that he will not allow territory of Pakistan to be used by terrorists, but then we had terror attacks in our country. Similarly, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, on his very inauguration, he invited Nawaz Sharif, he held talks with him. Then what happened after that? Prime Minister Narendra Modi went to
Sunil, I'm just going to focus for now.
He was in Afghanistan, he went to Lahore.
Sunil, I just want to focus on what we are seeing at the moment. We'll discuss what you're saying with guests. You're making important, relevant points, which we will take to our guests, because Pakistan does have a history of betrayal of promises and commitments they make. But just to get a ground report, Maushmi Singh joins me from Gurdaspur. Gurdaspur also, Maushmi, we are told that there have been ceasefire violations.
Rajdeep, there have been drones that have been spotted. I've recorded one visual myself at closer to the border. But yes, there is a blackout, but we saw markets open. The situation is less intense than yesterday and day before. You can say it can be a percentage. In terms of percentage, it's 10%. If yesterday it was 100%. So just one or two drones spotted here and there. But the mood in the village is mixed. There is a lot of suspicion over the ceasefire and over the ability of Pakistan to keep its promises. They believe that Pakistan never walks the talk, and whatever it says, it never does. And there is also a bit of happiness, or you can say satisfaction, that perhaps life can return to normal. Children can go to school and colleges, and the economy can be back on track. But most importantly, they believe that nothing should come at the cost of national security. And if a peace has been brokered, hopefully Pakistan will adhere to it.
Let me go from Maushmi to Shivani Sharma. She joins us from Srinagar. Shivani, we heard Omar Abdullah, the Chief Minister, say that explosions have been heard in and around Srinagar. What can you tell us?
Rajdeep, explosions have been reported in the skies in Srinagar, and this has been ongoing. And this is being taken as a massive breach of the ceasefire that was announced right in the evening. And apart from this, we are getting a number of inputs from a number of areas along the line of control where similar shelling has also been reported, and this drone activity from Baramulla, from Srinagar, from where the other reporters have been reporting are also being reported off. So we are now waiting for a response, in fact, from the armed forces and the government on this ceasefire violation once again from Pakistan. So we have to wait and watch. This is still a developing situation, Rajdeep, but what we are learning and what we are experiencing right now from the ground is that there has been a massive breach of the ceasefire.
Massive breach of the ceasefire is what all our reporters are reporting. Less intense, and I think that's important to stress, compared to what was the situation 24 hours ago. But clearly, there has been violations, and India and the BSF is retaliating. So the BSF, our border security force, is retaliating. But worrying signs that just a few hours after the ceasefire announcement, formally announced, we have these violations taking place. Just listen in to what was said just a couple of hours ago by Vikram Misri, our Foreign Secretary, and the backdrop where Donald Trump had tweeted, and it was then retweeted by the Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance, that the two sides had agreed to a ceasefire starting at 5 p.m. and it had been welcomed by the US President. Listen in to what Vikram Misri said a short while ago.
Director General of Military Operations of Pakistan called the Director General of Military Operations of India at 15:35 hours earlier this afternoon. It was agreed between them that both sides would stop all firing and military action on land and in the air and sea with effect from 1700 hours Indian Standard Time today. Instructions have been given on both sides to give effect to this understanding. The Directors General of Military Operations will talk again on the 12th of May at 1200 hours. Thank you.
So that was around 6 p.m. We are now at 9 p.m. So barely 3 hours after India formally in a short statement said that India would adhere to a ceasefire, the two DGMOs, Director General Military Operations, would meet. What are we back to square one? And those questions therefore will be asked. Operation Sindoor, were the objectives achieved? Will this India-Pakistan ceasefire really hold? Importantly, can Pakistan really be trusted to act on terror, on cross-border terror? Those are the questions that we're going to raise. Joining me at this moment, Vivek Kaju, former Secretary in the Ministry of External Affairs, has dealt with Pakistan also. Rajiv Dogra was former Indian Consul General to Karachi. We'll also be joined by military experts in a moment. But I want to come to you, Mr. Kaju, first. 6 o'clock, India announces, based on half an hour, 45 minutes after Donald Trump formally tweets out the announcement of a ceasefire. And what do we have at 9 p.m.? Pakistan once again violating terms of the ceasefire. Artillery shelling is on. How do we trust Pakistan? Will this ceasefire hold, Mr. Kaju?
We can never trust Pakistan. That is a given. That's point one, Rajdeep. Point two is that after ceasefires are announced, there are stray cases. I underline stray cases of firing between troops. That is not considered serious. But what your reporters have been telling us is serious. I carefully heard one of your reporters say that the intensity is down to 10%, but 10% is bad enough. It means either instructions have been given from the General Headquarters in Rawalpindi or that local commanders are acting on their own, Pakistani local commanders. In either case, It it is very worrisome, and clearly we will have to wait and watch for the next 24 hours, especially very carefully, the
So what's your
direction
sense?
in
Is it,
which the
just to
ceasefire.
stop, you made an important, your sense, is it local commanders who are violating the ceasefire, or is it that the GHQ and the civilian leadership may still be at cross purposes? Because very clearly it was mentioned in the statement that two DGMOs, the Director General Military Operations, would be meeting on Monday. So are the local commanders not aware of the ceasefire? Could that be the reason? Or is there a difference of opinion, as we've seen in the past, even in Kargil, between the military and the civilian leadership?
The State Department readout was that the Americans were in touch with Sharif, with the army chief, Asim Munir, and with the NSA. That would indicate that Asim Munir had come on board. Prima facie, that would be the indication. And the fact that the Pakistani DGMO spoke to our DGMO led me to think in that direction. But
Okay, so
now I would like to wait for the next 24 hours before I come to a firm conclusion about Asim Munir's motivations, because we know that Asim Munir has swallowed a very bitter pill. Why do I say that? Permit me one sentence here. The terror machinery of Pakistan is part of their security doctrine. Let us forget other aspects of this military operation. The fact that India, right at the beginning, was able to target Bahawalpur and Muridke, which occupy iconic status in the entire terror jihadi uh, jihadi setup of Pakistan, is a very bitter pill for Asim Munir, and he would be under tremendous pressure to proceed with operations from his jihadi proxies that the army has developed over 35 years. So, at the moment, I have question marks. After hearing your reporters, I have
right.
question marks because he'll have to pay. My last point, he'll have to pay a price, Rajdeep, to curb these boys, because that is what India has made clear. I think the uh, this operation, Sindoor, is a clear indication that India will not hesitate to use kinetic action through its conventional forces to
Okay, I
an
think
acceptable attack of terror. That is a statement, as I have said in my writings, of a Modi doctrine. And that is a very bitter pill for Pakistan to swallow, because it changes the entire dynamics. It was changing after Uri, surgical strikes, after Balakot, but this has conclusively changed it. And that doctrine was that any use of kinetic force by conventional forces is an escalation. Vikram Misri rightly said something that some of us were saying for years, that the escalation, the original escalation on the nuclear ladder is an unacceptable terrorist attack. So this is something which in doctrine large parts of the Pakistani army will find it very difficult to accept, and certainly the jihadi establishment, if I may say so, is today shaken because of the strikes. I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, on Bahawalpur and Murid.
you've said that, and you've said that emphatically earlier as well, that the strikes on Bahawalpur and Muridke have shaken, you believe, the Pakistan jihadi establishment. Rajiv Dogra, we're also getting a tweet a short while ago from Shahbaz Sharif, Pakistan's Prime Minister, welcoming the ceasefire. Shahbaz Sharif suggesting, therefore, that he's fully on board. But I go back to 1999. Nawaz Sharif was on board when it came to agreements with India. The Lahore bus ride of Prime Minister Vajpayee ended in the icy climbs of Kargil. Given what we've seen in the past, Pakistan shaking hands when it came after Pathankot as well, and then you had Uri. So how does one trust this Pakistani establishment, especially the military establishment, given what Mr. Vivek Kajju has just said, that for Asim Munir, for the Pakistani general, it's a bitter pill to swallow?
Rajdeep, you emphasized trust. I'm reminded of what Reagan said, trust but verify. Pakistan has betrayed India on the very first step. 3 hours back, it said, trust us. That's why the DGMO rang up. And that's why the technical term was not ceasefire, but halting of military operations on land and air, which means that there is no firm signature. Second thing is, your reporters interviewed some villagers in a remote area of Jammu and Kashmir. They were aware that India and Pakistan have reached an agreement. They were happy that their children could go back to school. How is it that the Pakistani army posted on their side of LOC and international border were not aware? Unless there's
so you don't buy the local commander theory. You don't buy the theory that local commanders are doing this. You don't buy it at all.
No. I'm not contradicting Vivek.
No, I'm saying in general. I'm saying in general. Do you believe local commanders surely would have been told by now that we've decided to go on a ceasefire?
They would have been told. That's exactly the point. My point is that there are two sides to it. Either there's an element in Pakistan army which has decided to revolt against Munir and go against his orders. That is number one. The second point is that Munir is being deceptive. He has promised one thing at one level and decided to take action at another level, because for whatever reasons. But that is their internal matter. Whether he is removed, whether there's a revolt or whatever, a solemn promise, and Pakistan is known not to keep its solemn promises. A promise given to another nation has to be kept. If it is not kept, then there is something very wrong with that country.
Absolutely. I take your point, and I think you make that point very strongly. I just want to go to get a military voice at this moment, because Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, former Chief of Staff, 14 Corps, is joining us. Appreciate your joining us, General Kulkarni. As you can see on our screen, blackout images once again. Artillery shelling, explosions heard by our reporters. Chief Minister Omar Abdullah saying 4 to 5 blasts heard in Srinagar. Gurdaspur also has witnessed some explosions or artillery shelling. Are we seeing Pakistan once again betraying its solemn commitments?
Thank you, Rajdeep. Leopards don't change their spots. Pakistan is a rogue state. It has a nuisance value. We've seen it in 65, the ceasefire would be declared. Still, you will find somewhere or the other jostling for better positions carry on. We've seen it in 71, and we've seen it in 1999 also, despite Nawaz Sharif in US on the 4th of July comes back, there was still jostling going on to ensure that nobody is found at a place which is not very comfortable there with. So this kind of a jostling does happen after the ceasefire. Not the word ceasefire in this case is wrong, because it's only stoppage of fire. So there is again a subtle difference between a ceasefire and stoppage of fire. So if Pakistan, as I said, is a rogue state, and you cannot trust Pakistan at all, and therefore I think it's time, whichever commander on ground opposite us has decided to violate this stoppage of fire, must be given back in the same coin, or rather harder, so that they understand. Because wherever it may
No,
be,
but General, are you clear that these are local commanders operating independent of GHQ? Surely not.
Sometimes they do. I've seen it. Sometimes they do. So you can, sometimes the orders to us come so fast that find that this is what it is. The other person may have not got orders in writing, or he'll insist, or he's a little, the word that we generally use, ulta khopdi. He doesn't understand. that there is ceasefire or some nation is at interest his heart or whatever it be, he will just keep doing it. He will just give orders to his troops, keep firing, doesn't matter. When they ask me, tell them, is it in writing? Don't tell me verbally. Last time also it gave me verbal orders and they were not correct. So Pakistan has a tremendous nuisance value, which we saw it and we keep seeing it, and therefore this kind of I won't call it aberration. It's sometimes intentional. It is sometimes intentional. Maybe they're not pulling along. So they do indulge in this kind of a thing. But as I said, Pakistan cannot be trusted. Pakistan is a rogue state and it has lots of rogue elements within Pakistan army who can even revolt against their own chief or against their own commanders. Yeah.
Let me give you the breaking news again. If you've just joined us, Pakistan has violated the ceasefire. 3 hours after the ceasefire, Pakistan has provoked once again, launching drones, artillery fire, yes, less intensity than it was yesterday, but it is a clear violation. A ceasefire violation is a ceasefire violation. Pakistan army, is it accepting the ceasefire or not? Why is the Pakistan army defying the civilian government? That's the big question. I'm also joined at this moment by Air Marshal Diptendu Chaudhary. Air Marshal Chaudhary, you're hearing these reports of Pakistan violating the ceasefire again, barely 3 hours after official commitments were given. Are you surprised?
Yes, I've just heard about it. And frankly, coming from our esteemed neighbor, I'm not surprised at all. We have seen their behavior over the years. The problem here is that when you have a military ruling the roost, and suddenly when they are forced to take action, there will always be elements who will defy, and they have a huge track record of doing this. There will always be elements who will defy and go their own way.
But that would never happen in the Indian system. How is the, imagine in India today, the political leadership of Narendra Modi commits to a ceasefire. There's no army general who's going to say, sorry, Prime Minister, I don't accept it. I'm going ahead and violating it. This is Pakistan's army state, isn't it?
Asdeep, this is the classic difference between India and Pakistan. We are a democracy. We are a military which has firmly been under civilian control. We respect the constitution, we respect rules, order, law and order, and the normative behavior of the world. We are a nation which is vastly different in our outlook compared to Pakistan. And I think the words of General Munir had made it amply clear how far apart we are. And the fact of it is, in India, it is unthinkable because this is, inconceivable in our Indian scenario, something like this would happen. So this is, I'm not surprised at all. The question is that we have to be gauged and careful here. While there'll be an immediate reaction to hit back in the same coin, but what needs to be borne in mind that when we do so with vengeance and fury, this could again bring back the whole story to square one and give enough fodder to the rogue elements to go the way and continue pursuing the path they have been carrying on till now.
Right. I think you make a very important point. That therefore, we've got to handle this very, very carefully at this moment. Just to give our viewers more breaking news, Pakistan, the blasts are continuing in Srinagar. 6 more blasts have been heard. Let's get that clear. 6 more blasts heard in Srinagar. Air defenses, the guns are engaging projectiles with explosive payload. Anti-drone system is hitting the drones hovering around the cantonment area. So 6 more blasts and parked drones have been sighted in Srinagar. We are seeing really projectiles with explosive payload also being engaged. So worrying signals there coming in from Pakistan suggesting that they're not accepting perhaps, or at least elements may not have accepted the ceasefire just yet. Vivek Kaju, what does India do in such a scenario? Given the fact that no less than the US president has taken his personal reputation in a way by coming out and saying, I've brought the two sides together, I welcome this ceasefire. You've had J.D. Vance saying the same thing. How does India now respond? Does it respond with rage or wait for a few hours or a day to see whether the ceasefire holds or not?
Look, Rajdeep, after hearing you now, and based on my experience of dealing with Pakistan, which stretches over a few decades, I'm reasonably certain that the use of drones uh, is indicative of a decision in General Headquarters. The use of drones in the manner in which they are being used in Srinagar, and you've mentioned that they are targeting the cantonment, is certainly uh, indicative of this fact. Now, why are they doing it is a question that I'm sure would be engaging our political leadership and our military leadership today. And
No, are you saying though that the
sure,
ceasefire is off for now, or do you believe
no,
that we
no,
cannot say that
no,
till we
no.
know in the next 24 hours exactly
I,
what
I
happens
would
next?
I would like to wait for 24 hours, but I think this is a very serious development which will engage our people through the night today to see how it evolves. That's point one. Point two, in my experience, the Pakistan army is both a political army and a professional army. The army has never revolted against a chief. Never. And it would be wrong of us to think that the chief can be elbowed out through a coup. The only time I recollect when the generals went to a chief and said that his position was untenable was with Yahya after his defeat.
After 71.
That's right, in 71 and in 58. After that, no chief has been removed. One chief voluntarily left, and that was Karamat, when the civilian prime minister objected to his speech on the National Security Council constitution.
So effectively
So
what you're saying,
what I'm
Asim
saying,
Munir, General Munir would know exactly what's happening on the ground.
I cannot believe that the use of drones. You see, the generals are there, the air marshal is there. They know much better than me. But my experience of 6 years on the desk in the 90s and later following Pakistan has been that the exchange of small arms fire, of even mortar fire along the LOC or the IB in J&K can be occasionally the work of local commanders, but not when heavy artillery is used. Then it has to be sanctioned by General Headquarters, and certainly when aerial vehicles, whether manned or unmanned, are used in the way that they are being used in Srinagar, would be with the sanction of the military leadership. I
Okay.
cannot believe that any local commander would dare to do this and survive in his job. Let's not
Okay, let
forget
me
that the Pakistan army chief does not forgive any dereliction of his orders. We'll be
Okay,
wrong to think that internally they are rogue. There have been cases of people revolting, and every time they've been caught, they've been court-martialed and punished, and the army chief's position has remained sacrosanct.
Okay, let me bring in General Kulkarni just to understand India's response in a situation like this militarily. You've had the military commanders also at the border who perhaps got the orders today from the political leadership or the military leadership in Delhi that we are going in for a ceasefire. 3 hours later, they see the shelling taking place on the border. What do the local commanders do? How do they interpret it? We are told the BSF is retaliating, but there are these mixed signals coming in. How does a military commander on the ground respond?
He retaliates without fail. He immediately starts retaliating because he would have asked the superior and told his superior, look, you told me there is ceasefire, but they are firing. I'm sure immediately the orders will follow, retaliate. Come on, open up. If they've opened up with RT, open up with your RT. If they've opened up with mortars, open up with mortars. If they're with small arms, just use small arms. That's it. There's no question. We retaliate, and we instantly retaliate without even looking back once if they've opened fire, because if the life of our troops is in danger, there's no question of not retaliating. Because we know there are rogues, absolutely rogues. Some of them will follow. If some of them don't follow, give it back. That's the only way they understand only that language. Yeah, right.
Rajiv Dogra, do you believe that that India's political leadership will have to pick up the phone, will have to get on a hotline both with Washington and maybe through back channel with Islamabad as well to find out what exactly is happening?
Indian leadership or Indian military get on to any phone at all, because DGMOs were in touch. And if there is firing from the Pakistani side, which has started, isn't it the duty of Pakistani DGMO to immediately ring up his counterpart in Delhi and say that, sorry, we've got a rogue commander and we're going to deal with him, but please don't think that this is a violation of our agreement 3 hours back. That has not happened. If that has not happened, then obviously there is connivance at the top. So we have to think whether America's rumored mediation or good offices have helped at all.
You know, given what you're saying, I just want to turn to you, Air Marshal Chaudhry. You know, last 24 hours, we've seen use of air power. The Pakistanis attempted to use it. India has responded and targeted Pakistani air bases. That presumably would take it once again back on that same escalatory ladder. At the moment, it is confined largely to artillery shelling. There have been a few instances of drone attacks. Where does the Air Force get in?
Rajdeep, just to put facts right, Air Force got in long before, because air defense gets in long before. So even at the first instance of all this, the air defense would have been churning. They are usually the last to wind down. But the Air Force's reaction has been very graded. After the first initial strike, our approach has been very defensive and very, very gauged and measured. But the moment they struck our air bases all along the front, and if you see all there's a very systematic targeting of air forces, air bases, frontline air bases. And why is that? Because Pakistani Air Force has elevated its position to a point as the keeper of, a big player in the entire military instrument of force in Pakistan. Remember that they have been leveraging the US and the Chinese to their greatest advantage, and they have singularly focused on building up their air power and cover the gaps after Balakot, so that in future, which such a occasion arise, that they would have covered the bases. Now, when they started escalating the whole game by targeting our frontline bases, technically, if you look at it, it's a military target which has been hit. It's an act of war. But we showed enormous restraint. But when they continued in this manner, that is the time now we struck back with fair amount of lethality in their bases. And I think the craters that we are showing, if they are from Rahimia Khan, it shows the extent of damage we could do. Again, we have been restrained by probably doing limited targeting, because if you really look at it, to take out an air base in a classic counter-air operations, the kind of force used and employed would have been significantly more, and not just 1 or 2 craters. So again, we have shown a restraint by going up the escalatory ladder. But if it continues in this manner, and this scale, then it depends on how it's going to go. But what we must bear in mind, drones give a very, they fall in the gray zone. It's very easy to carry out drone warfare and step back from the military domain. Oh, we are operating in the gray zone, and not really using classical hard power or military power in that option. There are very fine lines that we are treading here. But one thing you must remember in mind, the fact that we have targeted Pakistani air bases and air depth bases, do remember a fair chunk of Pakistani Air Force have American inventory, F-16s and the associated equipment. I don't think, and that must have certainly be a factor after our serious airstrikes. In possibly they would have played a serious role in the US coming into the negotiations.
Okay, that's interesting, because there are lots of theories doing the rounds, Vivek Kaju, and I want a short answer to lots of theories doing the rounds as to what suddenly changed in the last, say, 12 hours. Till this morning, both the countries seemingly were on an escalatory ladder. Along at about 5:30, we get this tweet from Donald Trump saying he welcomes a ceasefire. Meanwhile, I can tell you sources saying Army's Chinar Corps headquarters was the target of Pakistani drones. All the drones have been neutralized. Pakistan's bid to target the Chinar Corps headquarters has been foiled. Sirens now in Amritsar as well. But the Army's Chinar Corps headquarters in Srinagar that attempt has been foiled. So clearly, this is not just another ceasefire violation. Yes, there were artillery shelling, but all the Pakistani drones that were used went as far as the Chinar headquarters. How is that to be interpreted is now going to be the big question, Vivek Kaju, because something changed for Donald Trump to go public. So did the Americans get the wrong signals? There's also talk that having got their bailout yesterday from the IMF, Pakistan was then willing to come on board with a ceasefire. How do you see this entire ceasefire?
Look, Rajdeep, I have always believed that the IMF bailout was never in danger. No one would ever allow Pakistan to go down the tube. They will always be kept on a ventilator or a drip economically. No one wants a nuclear Somalia. It's a country of 24 crore people. I mean, let's smell the coffee. So that's one part. I don't think the IMF bailout was really an issue.
So what changed?
I think I think two processes. My own experience is that two processes were perhaps taking place simultaneously. One was a direct process, which was between India and Pakistan, and that is what we've stressed, that we were in touch with them directly. Second, the American State Department has issued a statement. Let's keep Donald Trump's comments aside. The American State Department has issued a statement, and the statement says that the Americans mediated a ceasefire between India and Pakistan. The word used is mediating, and they said they've announced this. They've also said other things in that statement. It's a 3-paragraph statement, which we have refuted, and I think correctly refuted, because if we were to accept what is in that statement, that says that the two countries will start, the governments of India and Pakistan have agreed to start talks on a broad set of issues at a neutral site, is something which will be contrary to everything that we diplomatically, and I'm sure Rajiv will agree with me, everything that we have done after Simla. There have been
but then why did we?
Hear me out.
No, then how do the Americans go ahead with a statement like that? If you're saying that this goes against everything that we stand for since Shimla.
I think they misinterpreted things, because we've said we were in direct talks. We've denied this. Strangely, the Ministry of External Affairs, I haven't seen deny it, but the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting has denied it. So there is some kind of a Government of India denial of this at the moment. But I think a plainer denial is needed. So as I said, two processes were in play at the same time, and the Pakistanis are acting like Pakistanis always do. This is very serious stuff. If Chinar headquarters are being targeted by drones, then I will reiterate, it cannot be a local commander or set of local commanders' activity. It has to be approved by GHQ.
But you know, Rajiv Dogra, the fact therefore is that here we've got this American statement, 3-para statement, saying the two sides have even agreed to talk a range of issues at a neutral venue. Now, did Donald Trump, has something got lost in translation? I mean, how is one to interpret this? Or was this seen as, give Pakistan something to feel that they can satisfy their domestic constituency, look for something that will give India a sense that they can go ahead and enunciate their concerns? I mean, how are we to interpret this?
Look, Rajdeep, I think speculations can go on, but it's not our business as professionals to speculate. What is there in black and white is the statement, American statement, which Vivek has read out. And hopefully by tomorrow morning, MEA would respond to that. It has already responded subtly in Foreign Secretary's first statement to the press this afternoon, where he said that emphasized that DGMOs of the two countries got together, and that was supplemented by External Affairs Minister's tweet, where also he emphasized that it was a direct talk between the two countries. But that apart, I mean, I think slowly these things will come out. If I am speculating, let me start from Nawaz Sharif's statement, which was put out on social media 2 days back, where he repeated his earlier advice to Shehbaz Sharif that please bring it down. So is it possible that civilian authorities, for some reason, may have agreed to the American pressure and for a moment got the army chief also to agree, on which he went back immediately thereafter? But as I said, this is speculative. I do not have any solid things to back it up.
You see, that's the problem. There's such a fog of war that still exists at the moment. Mr. Kanju, a quick comment. Yes.
No, my friend Rajiv Dogra and I entirely agree that as professionals we should not speculate. But then after that he began speculating himself, and he would be smiling at that. So the point I'm making is that I think
but I said
the process.
He's entitled. You see, we are all speculating as to what changed. You see, just as we went up an escalatory spiral so quickly, suddenly when a ceasefire is announced.
Permit me to complete. I believe that we were in direct conversations. But I think Rajiv will agree with me that the Americans are a meddlesome people, and they have said that we were working through the night. They are the preeminent country in the world. They don't want a distraction at the moment. So they were working the phones too. It's been my experience. I've handled Pakistan at a low level, middle level for many years, and I've seen Kargil, I've seen the Lahore thing, I've seen Agra. I know that several things are in play at the same time. I have every belief in what the External Affairs Minister has said. I'm not saying that that's wrong. I would like a more categorical assertion on our part here, because the American State Department statement is on record. So therefore there should be an MEA statement on record.
Right. I want to stop you for a moment, because we are also getting news that from a minister in Gujarat, several drones spotted in Kutch. So now it's not just in Kashmir, it's also in Kutch. We've also heard of drones being sighted near Pokhran in Rajasthan. So clearly this is, in a way, some would say back to square one, not quite in terms of intensity. Last night was particularly intense in terms of the kind of drone firing that took place from across the border, but there is a complete blackout in Kutch. All of this is leading to this fog of war at the moment. I just want to play a story from what has happened on the ground for a moment, because look, if you're living along the LOC, life has been very tough. In places like Uri, it has been consistent shelling for several days. And guess what? It's the innocent villagers who've suffered because of Pakistan violating the protocol when it comes to shelling across the LOC. This is a story of the people who suffer.
After targeting villages along the line of control, Pakistani artillery firing has turned to densely populated towns. Artillery shells hit Rehari locality of Jammu city on Saturday.
This is not a border village or border town. This is the heart of Jammu city, and look at what has happened here. Early this morning at around 5:40 a.m., there was a loud explosion here. We spoke to the local MLA here a short while ago. He claimed that a mortar shell landed here in this residential locality. But see the extent of damage that has taken place. The first floor of this house has been completely damaged. We are being told that 3 people have been injured in this explosion.
सुबह जब हम पहुंचे ये घटना हो चुकी थी, देखने को मिला कि पूरा जो ऊपर माउंटी है वो डैमेज है, आसपास के कुछ लोगों को छोटी माइनर इंजरीज आई है.
Jammu and Kashmir Chief Minister Omar Abdullah visited the affected areas. If a Gurudwara was impacted by shelling earlier, this time the area around Shambhu Temple in Jammu was targeted by drones.
So we're just trying to show you, look at the car. He was inside in his room. This is when this shelling had impacted. Look at this car. It's just pierced through huge metal. It's pierced through this particular wall out here. And clearly what we've seen here is also the civilian areas which has come under a massive fire, especially from the Pakistani army.
लोग डरे हुए हैं अंदर माहौल के अंदर, बाहर तो आ नहीं रहे. तो जैसे जिसको पता लग रहा है, जो आपने अपनी गाड़ी लेके सब गांव की तरफ भाग रहा है, कोई कहीं भाग रहा है, कोई कहीं भाग रहा है. हालात अपनी जिंदगी के में मुतासर हो गए सब. ये फर्स्ट बार रजौरी के अंदर ये इतनी बड़ी मूवमेंट आई है, आगे इसके पहले कभी नहीं आई है.
The house has been impacted in a big way. This is a massive blow by Pakistan, at least in the civilian areas, and that's what we've seen. Pakistan regularly attacking civilian areas. Remember, there's no army or other security establishment nearby. This is deep in the civilian area which has now been impacted, but that's the life of resident of a line of control, and this is where things remain uncertain for families like these.
जब मैं नमाज पढ़ रही थी, बहुत तेज आवाज आई. हम वैसे जमीन के साथ लगे, तो बाहर थोड़ी देर जब रुका, बाहर आके हमारे पड़ोसियों ने हमें बताया कि भाई आपका तो सब कुछ क्रैश हो गया है, निकलो यहाँ से, निकलो यहाँ से. हम गए, उठे, पास में जाके दूसरे घर में गए, हमारा सब कुछ खत्म हो गया है, पूरे का पूरा खत्म हो गया हमारा.
मैं सोया हुआ था, अचानक ही ब्लास्ट हुआ था. मेरी थोड़ी सी आंख खुली थी और 1 सेकंड भी नहीं लगा, पूरा रूम धूल से भर गया. कुछ दिख नहीं रहा था, कि जैसे पूरा काला, ब्लाइंड हो गए हम.
While India and Pakistan agreed to a ceasefire, Islamabad, unable to inflict damage on military facilities, targeted civilian population along the line of control. With Sunil Ji Bhatt and Kamaljeet Sandhu, Bureau Report, India Today.
I think it's important to emphasize, as that story does, that look, Gurdwaras have been targeted. This morning, a temple in Jammu was targeted. We've had 2 children who were going to a Christian missionary school in Poonch who lost their lives in the shelling. Pakistan's unprovoked shelling and drones are little short of madness. And that's the word I used, and that's what I said even on Twitter when I heard of the ceasefire. I hope the madness stops, because when you have a situation of every night, night after night, drones being sent across, shelling taking place, it's little more than lunacy. It's almost virtually pushing India to escalate the conflict, when all that Pakistan is doing is unprovoked firing against our border villages and civilian populations. That needs to be stressed. More than 20 civilians have, or around 20 civilians have lost their lives in Poonch, Rajouri. This morning an ADC was killed in the shelling. Now, if that is not madness, what is it? Now, Vivek Kaju, as we conclude, I just want to ask you one last time. Do you believe, therefore, that the Pakistani army has got a wake-up call from the Americans this afternoon and told enough is enough, and therefore may have agreed to a ceasefire only for another section to go against it? Is that how it operates? Is that how the Pakistani army could be operating? I thought they were a very professional army.
No, I believe it is a professional army. I believe that Asim Munir is in charge of the army. The army corps commanders, when they meet together in a corps commanders conference, they have a tradition of discussion. But ultimately, the buck stops with the army chief, and once he's taken a decision, everyone falls in line. So I can't believe that this is an action which is taking place without his sanction.
Okay, I think we've got a sense from all our guests that what we've seen over the last hour with these violations only reiterates the point that various Indian establishments have learned, often to their cost. Do not trust the Pakistanis at their word. And we can go back in history. Atal Bihari Vajpayee trusted them, went on the Lahore bus yatra, and we had Kargil. We've had in the past other attempts made by Indian prime ministers to reach out to Pakistan. Prime Minister Modi reached out to Nawaz Sharif in 2015 December. We had Pathankot just a month later. Manmohan Singh reached out to the Pakistan. Sorry, Mr. Kajju, what were you saying?
I said 10 days later.
10 days later, yes, 10 days later, December to January, yes. And then we had instances where Manmohan Singh reached out to the Pakistani leadership, and we had Mumbai 2611. Air Marshal Chaudhary, you want a final word? Are you hopeful, optimistic as we end the show at the moment? I'll be getting in more guests, or are you pessimistic? Will the ceasefire hold?
When it comes to Pakistan, I'm fundamentally cynical by nature, but there is this lingering hope inside me that that somewhere down the line they'll see the reason. My only sense, which I would like to end with, is that it'll be worth the while, possibly, to watch and wait the extent, because the Pakistani military and especially some of the leadership and for the Air Force, I know for a fact, would love to look at every option and tweak every option before they are forced to the table.
Okay, let's leave it there. I appreciate my guests joining us.